I remember one day when we were talking about the lateness and stuff, and I remember one day when, which is an indication of what I thought was normal, but it was when we'd agreed, because we went to the woods, didn't we?
We did, yes.
To bash, and then there was that time when, that's a sort of example, isn't it, of my reaction of being like, you'd said that you were going to do that, and then something happened.
I had to go to court with somebody that morning, yeah.
And then you were...
And I got stuck in traffic, well, gridlocked on the dual carriageway, and nobody was going anywhere. And I had to text you and say, I will be with you, but I don't know when, because nobody was going anywhere. And I think I was about half an hour late, which was unavoidable because nobody was, I don't know, roadworks or whatever. So that was a late one there.
But it was the fact that I was incapable at that time.
You were really upset, yeah, really upset. Even though you've been sort of kept informed, you know, I haven't abandoned you, I am coming, but I'm going to be there when I can get there. Yeah, absolutely devastated by it.
And the fact that I felt completely let down because we'd planned to go to do the wood that day.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't I? I just remember I was just sitting on the sofa sobbing my heart out.
I know, I said, we are still doing it. But because unfortunately, not that your time there wasn't important, because it really was, and it really did help you get it out of your system, but sometimes that wasn't life-threatening, but what I had to do was life-threatening, so that I had to make that judgment, and unfortunately for you, the other one won.
I know, because for me, it always feels like, to me, it's for me is as life-threatening as somebody else. That's how it feels. It always feels like that for me. And I don't know. I think that does go back to me when I was a baby, because when my brother was born, I really struggled with it because I hadn't had any of my needs met. And then he tips up, and I was so jealous. And I know it's like I cannot cope with somebody else being put before me. It's a big problem for me. I think, well, there you go, I'm not important, I don't matter, somebody else is always much more important than me, and it's huge for me.
I mean, hopefully when you go into treatment, you know, you will be doing some serious work with that, because it's not that somebody doesn't want to be with you or they've forgotten you. It's just sometimes you've been late before, or your car hasn't started and you've texted me, so I can't make it, car's not going, or whatever.
I know.
Okay, these things happen.
I know.
And that's the normal reaction. We'll rearrange, not a problem, which is what hopefully you will learn to do, because it's nothing personal, but you know, things in life don't always turn out right.
I don't cope with it. I don't, and I actually believed that when that happened, then I'm dropped. It feels like what happens is I get really, really excited about seeing you or seeing whoever, going to there, and I get really excited, and then if it's not sort of, I don't know, and if it's not the way in my mind, I feel dropped. I feel, well, I don't matter, I'm not important, but there's always a fine line as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Between it, because sometimes it's not always me, and the thing is I've always been blamed, and I've always felt it is me.
But it's not.
But it isn't.
No.
Do you see? And I'm really struggling with all this. What's normal? What's not okay? What is extreme? I don't have a clue. I'm realising. I mean, even with my son, if he disappears, I think he's never coming back. And I get catastrophic sometimes. I think, oh, I'm never going to see him again. Hello? That must be a bloody nightmare for him. I hadn't even thought about it, because in my head, that's real, that's happening. It is real. It's a real thing. I'm only just starting to see. And with my ex-partner, he tapped into all of that abandonment stuff, because he'd turn up late, and then I'd discuss him being late and say, you're late, well, you know, why didn't you ring? And he'd go, what's your problem? You're a complete control freak. My mother did exactly the same, not taking any responsibility at all for their behaviour.
They just twist it round and throw it back at you, don't they?
And this is the psychology, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you deal with all the time.
Then you get paranoid.
But is this what you deal with all the
Yeah,
time?
all
Men
the time.
doing this or women doing this?
It's mainly mind games. It's all about power and control with the men. I mean, women do it as well, don't get me wrong, but most of it is 95% is male perpetrators, so we'll say male because mainly it is.
So can you talk to us about how that happens? So can you help me and help other? How does that psychology go?
The normal triggers, I mean, you could have a lovely relationship with somebody for years. Normal triggers would be pregnancy, birth of a child, engagement, getting married. They are all triggers for somebody to totally change and want total control over the other person. Instead of having a lovely, loving 50-50 relationship where you discuss things, you care for each other, you do things for each other. The male, what's it called in male at the moment, will want to be higher and dominating of that female. So it could be through financial abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. There's quite a few ranges. It's not what a lot of people think. The portrayal of somebody with a black eye, emotional abuse is a lot more damaging than physical. Broken bones and bruises, they heal. Emotional abuse you carry around with you forever, really, in different degrees. And women learn to hide it very, very well. And because it is behind closed doors, nobody really knows the true extent. And as women, especially if you've got children, because they'll often threaten you with, social services will take your kids away from you. They don't. They're there to help you, unless it's in extreme cases where the woman won't protect her children, and then they will remove them. But they will try everything to keep the family together and get rid of the perpetrator.
So in terms of emotional abuse and that power and control and the psychology, how does that work? How does that happen? Can you give me an example of that?
It can be things like he'll come home, well, he might say in the morning, oh, can we have chops for dinner tonight? And so the wife or partner will cook him chops. He'll come home and say, I don't want those, I want to have whatever. Then she'll say, but you asked. And he'll say, but no, I don't want them now. So she'll go and cook him something else. He could keep her isolated from her friends and family. So, oh, they're not good enough for you, only I love you. Or he might just be so threatening, shouting, screaming, throwing things that, she doesn't invite friends around anymore. He could be really embarrassing when they turn up, so she doesn't invite friends around anymore. And it's gradually just keeping her to himself in the house. So she loses all her friends, all her family. Of course, if she goes and talks to anybody and says what's going on, other people know, and he won't like that. He won't like anybody knowing, because they're normally quite charming, can hold their own in a conversation. They're normally the guy in the pub who's buying everybody drinks, who's loud and laughing and everybody's friend. But you get him back home, it's like Jekyll and Hyde. He completely changes, and he won't be like that to her or the children. And he can also use the children against her as well, and either buy them, which, computer games, flash toys. If don't behave for mum, I'll come and buy you things. And yes, some things are pretty horrific, what they get the kiddies to do.
And so is this is because this is where it's so insidious, and it erodes the mind, isn't it? I mean, I know that's what happened to me. It's the eroding of the mind.
It's absolutely exhausting and very draining. I mean, we've got 2,000 people on our books at the moment, and we were the last area to get outreach because apparently, the Guildford region didn't actually have any domestic abuse.
Because it's Surrey, darling.
Because it's Surrey, absolutely.
There's no domestic abuse in Surrey, darling.
God, no. And we've been running 5.5 years.
So you've now got an outreach service.
We now have an outreach service, yes. So, yes, there definitely is a need. And we're just the tip of the iceberg. We're just the one, we get the police referrals. Sometimes we will get self-referrals. I'm a great one for putting up leaflets in places where men can't go. So that's my job. I put stickers everywhere, so just to highlight it. My manager, she goes and does talks in schools because we're trying to get the young ones before they start getting into later teenage relationships. So it's all ongoing, and there's 4 of us now.
Wow.
But there was just 2 of us, and we had Guildford, so...